this video, I want to talk about the topic of subtleties and how just slight variations in your playing, slight variations in conventional licks that you've heard all the time can really make an impact with your melodic content in your lead playing. Making recurring themes, emulating vocal lines so that when people hear the solo, it's not just all technical shredding and things like that. There's a theme. You hear it maybe once or twice within the solo. So we're obviously changing gears here. If you haven't seen my last video talks about the concept of, using minor pentatonic scales in 3-note per string patterns, and then adding the blues note for extra character in certain octaves, which is great, but that concept is best applied probably in fast speedrun style playing, legato runs, economy picking, things like that. And that's not for everyone. Not everyone wants to shred and play that type of stuff, and not everyone wants to hear it. So you have to have both sides of the coin if you really want to be an effective lead guitar player. So what I want to do is I'm going to walk you through the jam track that you heard in the intro of the video. And I'll explain the licks and the concepts of how I make things sound melodic in that jam. So let's get to the source first. Let's talk about the progression that you hear underneath the solo. And obviously it's nothing new. It's a very conventional progression. You've heard it millions of times, I'm sure. But the point of it is I want to talk about what makes it sound melodic. So basically you have E power chord, we're in the key of E. Then I go up to the minor third. And for those of you who don't know theory, or that's just getting into theory, the minor third is very important. It defines a minor progression, and it defines all minor chords. So it has a very distinct sound and characteristic. But at the end of the progression, so we go from the root to the minor third, and then we end it down here. And this is the minor 6, the minor 6 chord. If you want to get really technical, it's also the submediant chord, or the minor submediant. And people who hear this, who are just jamming in their room or whatever, or jamming over a track, they might just, go to the minor pentatonic scale and play the classic bends and licks that they know. But what they're missing is that minor 6 note, because that minor 6 note is not in the minor pentatonic. I mean, at the end of the day, the minor pentatonic is the minor scale. It's just the Cliff Notes version of the minor scale. It's the best parts of it, or the strongest notes of it, but it's missing out on 2 notes. The major second, and the minor 6. I try to use classic licks and add those 2 minor notes in certain situations. So here is the first lick that I open up with, which is very classic blues / rock minor pentatonic lick. Now what I do to kind of make it sound a little more, minor, or kind of go with the progression more, is I add this. So it just changes things up a little bit, and it's more consistent with the background chord progression. And that's another concept, or that's part of this whole lesson, is you kind of want to ride the progression. You don't want to be mutually exclusive. Your solo, and then the chord progression are just kind of separate things, and as long as you're in the same key, everything's going to work out. Well, you should probably use your ears more and listen and see where the chord progression is going. And you kind of want to ride that wave. You want to be able to work with the chord progression. And then after that section, I do this kind of a phrasing down the notes, descending. Building on that concept, like I said, riding the wave of the progression. I'm bending the major second note into the minor third. Then I'm sliding down to the minor 6 when the minor 6 chord is being played in the progression. And then I just go down some more. bending, basically emphasizing the bending of those same notes, the minor sixth and the major second. The next passage this is a bend that I like a lot more than the conventional approach. Usually you'll see this a lot. But especially in a progression like this, like I said, when the minor sixth is being emphasized, I like to do this a lot. So the bend, the classic minor pentatonic bend, into the minor sixth. And I do a few different variations of that, and that's another thing about subtleties. I do that approach to it, and then I do this. You're sliding up where you would have bended that note, and then you're playing the minor sixth at the same time. And then that second part is more of a pentatonic approach. And then I do this. So another way I add variation and subtlety. That's what you would usually hear probably from most pentatonic licks. But instead of making it sound kind of percussive with the sound of the pick attack, I just tap it. I tap the same note. There's more fluidity. It sounds smoother, and like I said, it kind of emulates more of a vocal line because you don't hear any sharp difference between the notes, like the sound of the pick or anything like that. It just sounds very fluid the way a vocal might sound. And that's just another variation. Now that's the third variation of this classic minor pentatonic bend into the minor sixth. We did this, and then a slide up, and now I'm doing this, which is basically a bend, that same bend, and then you take your pinky and you just play a half step up. And then I do this tricky little phrase, which you might have heard a lot. Even guitar players who have played for years might have heard this, but maybe you didn't exactly know how to emulate the sound. It is a little tricky to get used to. I'll show you the lick, and then I'll explain what's going on. Basically, you're going to bend up from the minor seventh to the root, so you're utilizing two strong bends, very melodic sounding bends. The first is the minor seventh to the root. We're doing that on the G string. And then we're going to come down on the other popular bend, which is the perfect fourth bent into the perfect fifth. And that sounds good too, because the perfect fifth is a very stable interval. So you bend it, the D string beneath it kind of physically bends along for the ride, but you're not hitting that note yet. It's silent at this point. It's just bending with the G string. And then as you get to the point where you're hitting the minor seventh into the octave, you release it. You don't come back down. And this is the trickiest part. You let it go, let go of the bend, and you kind of mute the string with your index and middle finger. And then your ring finger is there to bend into that perfect fourth to perfect fifth bend on the D string. So it takes a little while to get used to it. And then I bend I go back up to the B string, high B string. And there again I'm adding the minor scale notes I'm bending the major second into the minor third, which is a constant theme of this progression. Go back down to that 13th fret note on the high B string, which is the minor 6. This lick is basically how I kind of end it. It's just a change from what I do even a lot. I do this lick instead, which is just more straight up minor pentatonic. So the same type of feel, but I'm using that minor 6 again. I'm kind of using it in a natural minor context. So that's the main goal of this video. Just always listen, be aware of the chord progression that you're soloing over in any given situation. Sometimes it's not enough just to know that you're in the key of E minor or the key of E major. You want to know how the progression is flowing, if it's using other notes besides the minor pentatonic. If you're stuck in that kind of minor pentatonic box, really listen to how the progression flows. If there's extra notes, natural minor notes, emphasize that. And always try to make, at least certain sections of your solo stand out. Play it maybe a few times, repeat the lick, do it maybe in the beginning and then another time at the end. Really infuse, like I said before, vocal qualities and recurring catchy hooks to your solos. And I'm going to tab all this stuff out on my website, bremusiclessons.com, so you can check it out if you want to look at the tabs. And I'll see you in the next video.